I'm currently navigating a challenging situation marked by my family's expectations and financial disagreements within my marriage. It feels like my chance to inherit what I rightfully deserve is slipping away, overshadowed by my husband and his mother's relentless pursuit of wealth. You might assume that inheriting from one's family would be straightforward, but for me, it feels like a distant dream. My husband Henry and his mother are so fixated on money that they seem to believe they can lay claim to my late father's hard-earned legacy, a thought I find utterly unforgivable. Every day, my resolve grows stronger. I refuse to succumb to their insatiable greed. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Diana, a 40-year-old woman navigating a 14-year marriage while juggling family duties and a demanding job. My husband Henry, 42, works at a supermarket near the station where our paths first crossed during my university days. We started dating casually while I worked part-time at that same store, eventually marrying when I was 23. Our family now includes our son, Liam, who just embarked on his university journey this spring. While I remain committed to my responsibilities, a troubling undercurrent runs through my life: Henry's reckless spending habits. Though he has the right to spend our hard-earned money, his constant demands for more, coupled with a lack of transparency, have worsened our financial situation. Discussions about money, especially in front of his parents, quickly turn into battlegrounds. My resistance to their endless requests often leads to fierce opposition, and tensions rise whenever Liam's grandparents visit, a sentiment Liam shares, often choosing to avoid their company. Recently, Liam dropped a bombshell that added even more stress to our already strained situation. He caught his father being unfaithful. This revelation left me heartbroken and furious, yet Liam's support gave me the strength to consider confronting Henry before making any major decisions. As I gathered my thoughts on how to address this delicate issue, an unexpected situation arose. Henry and his parents showed up in our living room. What seemed like a casual visit escalated quickly when Henry suggested an expensive trip to Hawaii, casually mentioning he needed $8,000 for it. My frustration boiled over, and I seized the moment to confront them, not just about their relentless financial demands but also about Henry's betrayal. The room fell silent as the weight of my accusations sank in. When I confronted Henry about his infidelity, he initially denied everything, questioning the need for proof and defending his innocence. I countered by stating that he had been seen entering a hotel with another woman. He attempted to discredit our son, the very witness of his betrayal, which made me hesitate. I didn't want to drag Liam into this messy confrontation. To my astonishment, my mother-in-law downplayed the seriousness of the infidelity, suggesting that such behavior is typical and should be overlooked. I was appalled that she, a woman herself, could dismiss such behavior so lightly. Despite the emotional turmoil, the conversation quickly shifted back to their financial request for the Hawaii trip, as if my husband's betrayal was merely a minor distraction. Frustrated with their ongoing financial disputes and the lack of moral sensitivity from Henry, I realized it was time to end our marriage. With a calm yet firm voice, I knew it was time to stand my ground. I declared that we were getting a divorce, and my husband reacted with an immediate threat. If we proceeded with the separation, he would claim my parents' mansion as part of the property division. Our argument escalated, but just then, my cell phone rang, interrupting the heated exchange. It was my uncle, my father's brother, calling with distressing news. My father had collapsed and was rushed to the hospital by ambulance. I quickly explained the urgent situation to my husband and his parents before hurrying to the hospital. Upon arrival, I felt a wave of relief when I learned that my father was stable, though his health was far from good. At 62, he had dedicated his life to our family business, working tirelessly to provide us with a comfortable life. The sudden news of his health crisis shook me to my core, making me acutely aware of his irreplaceable role in my life. A few days later, my father regained consciousness, easing some of my immediate worries during a visit with my son Liam. We shared a bittersweet moment filled with relief and concern. However, a subsequent call from the doctor confirmed the severity of my father's condition, exacerbated by years of overwork. Tragically, he passed away not long after, and I found myself engulfed in grief. Throughout this challenging time, Liam remained my steadfast source of support. As an only child, I took on the responsibility of organizing the funeral, a task made even more difficult by my husband's indifference. At the funeral, my in-laws attended but offered nothing but superficial expressions of admiration for the family home, displaying a tasteless curiosity about its value. After the memorial service, as I struggled to come to terms with my father's passing, my in-laws paid us an unexpected visit. Sadly, their attention was more focused on the material aspects of our lives, with my mother-in-law particularly fixated on the grandeur of the house. Their insensitivity and materialism only compounded the pain of our family's loss. As I grappled with my grief and began putting away my funeral attire, I felt a deepening sense of isolation. I received an unexpected call that my parents were on their way to visit. Confused and anxious, I couldn't help but wonder what prompted their visit. My apprehension grew as I braced myself for another conversation likely focused on financial issues. Determined to understand their intentions, I prepared for a meaningful discussion upon their arrival. When they walked in, the mood shifted. My in-laws, who had tagged along, settled onto the sofa with satisfied grins. Tension thickened when my husband suddenly suggested that we move out of our spacious house and proposed that his parents move in with us in a new home. Shocked by this suggestion, I reaffirmed my decision to proceed with the divorce, a choice driven by the need to manage my late father's affairs. Ignoring the reality of his infidelity and our impending separation, my husband nonchalantly insisted that everything we owned, including my inheritance, should be shared between us as spouses. His audacity, assuming entitlement to my inheritance, infuriated me. Meanwhile, his parents casually discussed their room preferences in the potential new mansion, further fueling my frustration. Determined to protect the legacy my father had worked so hard to build, I vowed never to let them have their way. The sheer gall of my husband and his parents treating my father's house and wealth as if they were rightfully theirs stretched my patience to its breaking point. A few days later, amid this turmoil, I received a call from my uncle. His comforting words reassured me that I was handling the situation well, despite the overwhelming challenges. However, the conversation took an unexpected turn when he mentioned he had urgent news to share, prompting us to arrange a meeting that very night. As he revealed shocking details about my husband and his parents, I braced myself for what was to come. I was stunned by the gravity of the information my uncle shared. Determined to find a way forward, I confided in him about the outrageous demands and claims made by my in-laws. Outraged by their boldness, my uncle reassured me that he would help manage the situation. Curious about his approach, I eagerly met with him the next day, bringing my son Liam along. The plan was to enlighten Liam about the true nature of his father and grandparents, preparing him for the difficult times ahead. Armed with this new strategy, I called my in-laws over to discuss the possibility of all 6 of us living together in my family home. The proposal seemed to catch everyone off guard, but once they realized we were serious, my mother-in-law quickly warmed up to the idea, excited at the prospect of living in what she referred to as a dreamlike mansion. However, that excitement was short-lived. Reality struck when my father-in-law mentioned the cancellation fee for their previously planned trip, demanding reimbursement. Their unabashed self-interest was glaring, and I was appalled by their audacity. Yet my mother-in-law, unfazed, assured everyone that they would manage the finances soon enough, brushing aside any immediate concerns. Having dealt with my husband and in-laws' relentless pursuit of money for so long, I had become somewhat numb to their schemes. But this time, their sheer selfishness struck a deeper chord, reminding me of the challenging road ahead in standing up to their manipulative tactics. Liam, who wasn't used to their blatant greed, was clearly upset and angered by their behavior. To comfort him, I gently patted his shoulder and assured him that we would manage the situation together as the conversation continued about the possibility of moving into my family home. I decided to play along, fully aware that my in-laws' expectations were far from reality. My husband, Henry, probed into the logistics of the move, his tone unusually sharp. Trying to ease the tension, I explained that Liam and I would go over first to prepare the house, emphasizing that it was a substantial task and we needed to start early. However, Henry expressed doubt about Liam's ability to handle such responsibilities, given his status as a student. I skillfully reassured him that Liam was more than capable, though Henry remained somewhat skeptical over trivial issues. Despite the underlying tension, my mother-in-law was cheerfully oblivious to it all. The conversation soon drifted to the size of the mansion and the number of rooms, which excited her. Seizing the opportunity, I told them they could choose their rooms first and even suggested a gradual approach to cleaning and organizing, considering my busy work schedule. My measured responses temporarily satisfied their expectations, leaving them pleased with what they perceived as a victory. In my mind, however, I was devising a plan to challenge their presumptions and bring their lofty expectations back to reality. The moving day was scheduled for a month later, giving me time to strategize and potentially change the course of events to better align with fairness. As the decisive day approached, I felt a mix of anticipation and determination. Liam and I stood at the front entrance, ready to meet them, ignoring Henry's attempts at humor. I noticed the sparkles of excitement in my in-laws' eyes, completely oblivious to the fact that their illusions were about to be shattered. When the gates swung open, my uncle, my father's brother, stepped out of the house. His presence was silent yet imposing as he confronted my husband and in-laws, leaving them puzzled. It was clear that Henry barely remembered my uncle from the funeral. My uncle asserted his ownership of the house and clarified the details of the inheritance distribution, the shock on my husband and in-laws' faces evident as they processed the gravity of their misunderstanding. Despite my uncle's assertive explanations, Henry tried to maintain his composure, seemingly attempting to gloss over the confrontation. However, the tension escalated when Liam stepped in, accusing his father of infidelity. This revelation left Henry visibly shaken, unable to deny the truth of being seen entering the hotel with another woman. The suspicion I had harbored was now confirmed, and when confronted, my husband adamantly denied the accusations, refusing to admit to any wrongdoing. Liam, distressed by his father's actions and their impact on our family, urged Henry to leave our lives for good. Despite this emotional plea, my in-laws remained fixated on financial matters, insisting on a formal division of property. The relentless pursuit of financial gains starkly contrasted with the emotional turmoil we were experiencing, highlighting their indifference to the pain they were causing. I was left utterly astonished when my in-laws announced that they had given up their apartment and quit their jobs to indulge in a leisurely life at what they assumed would be the family mansion. Even more shocking was their revelation that both my husband and father-in-law had resigned from their jobs, planning to rely solely on what they believed would be their share of my father's inheritance. Bewildered by their rash decisions and presumptuous expectations, I stood firm in asserting my rightful claim as my father's child, anticipating a fair division of his substantial property. Fortunately, my uncle, who was also a lawyer, stepped in to manage the legal aspects of the situation. He revealed that my husband's infidelity was backed by solid evidence gathered from a month-long investigation. This disclosure stunned my husband and his parents, finally making them realize the gravity of their miscalculations. With my uncle's guidance, I informed them that any further discussions would need to be handled legally and demanded that they never contact me again. Despite a brief hostile look from Henry, they left without further incident. I expressed deep gratitude to my uncle for his crucial support. Following the legal proceedings, Liam and I moved into the family home, fulfilling the wishes of my father and grandfather. I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the opportunity to live in a house filled with cherished memories. Inspired by his uncle's example, Liam dedicated himself to his studies with the goal of becoming a successful lawyer. Meanwhile, my ex-husband and his parents faced tough times, struggling to find new jobs and adjusting to an old apartment. The repercussions of their actions began to unfold as Henry, now financially strained, reached out for help. However, having severed ties completely, I declined to provide any financial support, reinforcing our estrangement. As he tried to adjust to his new reality with part-time and day jobs, their earlier scheme to finance a non-existent luxury trip unraveled, further exposing the extent of their deceit. Relieved of these burdens, I focused on my career, eagerly looking forward to seeing Liam graduate from college, proud of overcoming such significant challenges and starting anew.
On my sister's wedding day, they really went all out. They seated me at a table all by myself as if to say a factory worker on night shifts with just a high school diploma belonged nowhere else. I was the only one at a large round table, and it was painfully obvious. As I sat alone, a man approached quietly with a plate of food and a drink in his hand.
"Excuse me, would it be alright if I join you?"
I didn't mind. My name is Mary, and I work the night shift at a factory. I'm 21. It's common for many people at the factory to have night shifts, but being a high school dropout makes me an exception. I wasn't a bad student and didn't hate studying, but I couldn't attend high school. My parents, especially my mother, refused to let me go. No matter how much I begged, even when my teachers asked them to let me attend, my strong-willed mother shut it down, saying it was a waste of money. I have an older sister named Chelsea. She's pretty, smart, and the pride of our parents. My parents adored Chelsea, showering her with love and money while I received neither. They treated me as a servant, forcing me to work and give them my earnings.
Mary, make dinner before your sister gets home. I told you she'd be home early today.
Every day I returned from night shifts around 7 a.m., and if I had overtime, I got back even later. Still, I was expected to cook breakfast for my family and clean up afterward before I could even think about sleeping. I was barely allowed to sleep before being woken up by 4 p.m. to prepare dinner again. I tried to protest. I just had a long night with overtime. Can't I sleep a bit longer?
Like you, a high school dropout who works in a factory, your sister has a prestigious job at a big company. She's entrusted with important work.
Why can't you cook? You're home all day just lounging around. That set my mom off.
How dare you? I'm your mother and you don't get to talk back to me.
My mother was a stay-at-home mom, but she left all the housework to me. She spent her days going out for lunch and karaoke with her friends. She was practically out, having fun all the time. My dad, although aware of how unfair this was too passive to do anything about it. Once he tried to say something to my mother, but she shut him down so hard that he never bothered trying again.
Your mom doesn't listen to anyone, so it's best to just give up.
I'll never forget the time my dad said that to me when I tearfully begged to go to high school.
Who do you think you are, asking for more? We did our job as parents by making sure you finished compulsory education.
If that's fulfilling their role as parents, then they should have at least let me finish high school.
Hurry up and stop whining. There's no time. Do you want Italian or Indian tonight?
I sighed as I prepared dinner, ignoring her ridiculous demands. Every evening, just as I left for my night shift, my sister would come home. I tried to avoid her as much as possible. If we crossed paths, I'd be showered with sarcastic remarks, so I always left the house early to avoid her. Unfortunately, today my mother delayed me with more chores and my sister walked in.
I'm home. Oh, welcome home, Chelsea. You must be so tired from work today. You always work so hard. Yeah, it's been exhausting. One of the new hires is useless, and they just end up creating more work for me. So annoying. You're so good at your job, though. The higher-ups must be impressed. They are. They told me how much they're counting on me.
As they lavished compliments on her, I quickly tried to leave the house.
Oh, heading to your night shift? Working night shifts in a factory must be tough, but I guess that's what you get for being a high school dropout.
I ignored her mocking laughter and walked toward the factory. There was no one on my side in this house. You'd think I'd just move out, but I couldn't leave. I had one reason. My cat, Susie. Susie was originally brought home because my sister wanted a cat, but as soon as she lost interest, I ended up being the one to take care of her. My sister acted like the queen of the house, so of course, my mother stopped caring about Susie once Chelsea did. My father was, as usual, a non-factor, so I took on the responsibility of caring for Susie. She was my one source of comfort in that house. Susie greeted me every morning when I came home, and on days when she didn't, I'd find her curled up in my bed waiting for me. During my teenage years, I often cried because of my family's cruelty, but Susie would always stay by my side, purring as if to comfort me. I tried many times to leave, but my mother always said the same thing.
You can't live on your own. You're a high school dropout, and the world isn't that easy. You'll never make it.
My mother liked to call me ignorant of the world, but she had never worked a day in her life. If anyone was ignorant, it was her.
And by the way, you're not taking Susie with you. If you try, I'll dump her somewhere in the mountains.
She threatened me with this so often that I became terrified of leaving. I knew if I left, my mother would actually abandon Susie. She was capable of anything. I couldn't imagine a life without Susie, and she was my reason for staying. The only other thing keeping me going was Harry. Harry worked at the same factory as me. He was 23 and incredibly kind. He had gone through his own struggles with family, but had turned his life around, working hard and earning the trust of everyone around him.
Mary, if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to tell me. I'm here for you no matter what.
Harry always praised me when I felt like I had no value, reminding me of my worth.
You're kind, hardworking, and thoughtful. Everyone at work thinks highly of you. You've got so many people who care about you, Mary.
He said things that made me blush, but it felt good to be appreciated. Most of our dates took place at Harry's apartment since we didn't like spending too much money. I would often bring Susie along, and the three of us would have a great time together. Harry and Susie got along so well that they seemed inseparable.
Susie, you're a smart cat. Take care of Mary, okay?
Susie would always respond with a meow, as if understanding Harry's words. I loved both of them dearly. One day my sister came home in an unusually good mood, grinning from ear to ear while holding a huge bouquet of roses.
Oh, Mary, look at this. Isn't it amazing?
It was so big that it covered her entire upper body. I couldn't help but ask, "Wow, that's huge. What's the occasion?" I didn't usually care to engage with her, but my curiosity got the better of me.
My boyfriend proposed to me. We're getting married. Isn't that incredible?
I knew she had a boyfriend, but I had never met him. Hearing about her engagement didn't stir any strong emotions in me.
He works at the same company as me, earns a ton of money, and he's super handsome. You wouldn't know what it's like to meet someone like that. A high school dropout working the night shift at a factory.
Seeing her boast, I realized how foolish I had been to ask. I just wanted to leave for work, but ignoring her would only make things worse. Trying not to show how tired and irritated I was, I forced a smile. "That's great. Congratulations. Sorry I have to get going now."
Yeah, run along and work hard, okay?
My sister called out after me, still gloating.
My fiancé's coming over tomorrow, just so you know.
I rolled my eyes as I headed out the door. The next evening, I came home later than usual, hoping to avoid meeting her fiancé. As I walked through the front door, I saw my sister and an unfamiliar man emerging from the living room.
Oh, welcome home, high school dropout. Let me introduce you. This is Brian, my fiancé.
I forced a polite smile. "Nice to meet you. I'm Mary, Chelsea's sister. Sorry for my appearance. I just got back from work."
Oh, I see.
Brian looked me up and down, taking in my factory uniform, and I instantly felt judged. He was tall, handsome, and well-dressed, just as my sister had described.
Yeah, Chelsea told me you were a high school dropout working at a factory. It definitely suits you.
At that moment, I realized he was just like my sister, condescending and arrogant. Brian's smile was cold, and his eyes didn't reflect any warmth.
Isn't it embarrassing? Sorry about her.
My sister linked her arm through his like she was showing off.
It's fine, I'm a forgiving person, but maybe you could at least try to make yourself look presentable, Mary.
His words were condescending, but I knew better than to engage. I smiled as best as I could, hiding my frustration. I'm sorry. With a night shift and everything, I just didn't have the energy today. If you'll excuse me, I'll go rest now. They smirked as I left the room. I didn't care where my parents were or what they thought. I just wanted to find Susie and get some peace. But as I walked up the stairs to my room, I realized something strange. Susie wasn't there. I called her name as I searched, but there was no response. Susie was a smart cat and always answered when I called her. Panic began to set in. Had something happened to her while I was at work? Had my parents taken her to the vet? I rushed back downstairs just as my parents came home. They were both talking, and I noticed scratches on their hands. What happened to your hands? My voice trembled as I asked.
Oh, those? It's nothing. We took Susie out in her carrier and left her in the mountains.
My mind went blank. What did you just say? I couldn't comprehend what I had just heard.
Brian is allergic to cats, so we had to get rid of her.
What? You abandoned her in the mountains? How could you?
Oh, what do you expect? We can't let our cat ruin your sister's wedding.
All the anger I had kept bottled up over the years suddenly erupted. Susie was part of this family. You always put Chelsea first. Don't you care about anyone else? I screamed, sobbing uncontrollably as all the years of pent-up frustration came out at once. Even my mother looked startled, as I had never spoken out against her like this before.
Oh, what's all this noise about?
My sister and Brian stepped into the hallway, clearly amused by my breakdown.
Thanks for getting rid of the cat for me. Much appreciated.
My blood boiled. How could you let them do this? Why didn't you stop them?
I'm allergic to cats and I don't like them anyway.
I was shaking with fury.
Come on, Mary, it's just a cat. You can always get a new one after Chelsea and I move out.
That's not the point. I collapsed onto the floor, sobbing.
Stop crying and making a scene. You're so dramatic.
My mother pushed me aside as she walked back into the living room with my sister and Brian, leaving me alone in the hallway.
If you go about 20 minutes into the mountain from the entrance, that's where we left Susie.
My father's voice was quiet and filled with regret.
I didn't want to do it, but your mother insisted.
It was the first time I had ever heard my father apologize for anything. My father's apology left me stunned, but I couldn't focus on that now. I had to find Susie. Despite being exhausted from my night shift, I sprinted out of the house and called Harry on the way. It rang for what felt like forever, but finally Harry picked up.
Mary? What's going on? Why are you crying? Where are you?
I could barely speak through my sobs. Susie, they abandoned Susie in the mountains.
What? Are you serious? Where are you? I'm coming right now.
I ran toward the mountain as fast as I could.
Stay where you are. I'll meet you.
I saw Harry running toward me in the distance. When he reached me, he handed me a bottle of water. I drank it quickly, trying to catch my breath. They dumped Susie in the mountains. I couldn't stop crying as I explained everything to Harry.
That's insane. I can't believe they do that.
Harry was furious on my behalf, but he kept calm for me. My dad told me where they left her. Can you help me find her?
Of course. Let's go.
We jumped into Harry's car and drove toward the mountain. Once we arrived, we searched everywhere, calling Susie's name, but there was no response. No sign of her anywhere. Susie's gone. I can't find her. I collapsed, crying harder than ever. We had searched for hours, but there was nothing.
We need to go back for now, Mary. It's getting dark. We'll try again tomorrow.
I could barely nod in agreement, completely drained both physically and emotionally. Harry helped me back into the car and drove me home. When we arrived, my entire family was outside along with Brian.
Oh, look, the dropout's back. What happened to your face? You look awful.
They were laughing. Their mockery was too much. My anger surged back. How dare you laugh? This is all your fault, everything.
What are you talking about? You're being so dramatic over a cat.
Seriously, still going on about that? Oh, get over it. Susie's just a cat and your sister comes first.
I'll never forgive you. Never. I lunged toward them, but Harry stepped in.
This is unbelievable. Mary, you can't stay in this house anymore. I'm taking you with me. Oh, who's this? Are you her boyfriend? I didn't realize you were into high school dropouts too. Actually, I graduated high school, but I'm not here to argue with you. Mary, grab your things, and let's go.
I rushed into the house and gathered my essentials. As I packed, I could hear my mother, Chelsea, and Brian saying terrible things about Harry. I ignored them and focused on leaving. When I came back downstairs, my mother finally spoke up.
Are you really leaving? What about all the housework? Who's going to cook and clean?
I didn't respond, but Harry did.
That's for you all to figure out. She's done enough.
My mother tried to protest, but this time my father intervened.
Just let her go. She's been through enough. Chelsea's getting married soon, and she'll be out of the house anyway.
Fine. It's not like I'll need her after I move out.
With that, I left my family behind and climbed into Harry's car. As we drove away, I made a vow to never look back and to get my revenge on all of them. Harry let me stay with him until we could find me a place to live. Everyone at the factory knew about my difficult family situation, and they were all incredibly supportive. Especially our factory boss, who was a huge cat lover. When I told him what had happened, he was livid.
If your mother comes here again, I'll have her arrested.
He was an intimidating guy with a muscular build, and I could tell my mother wouldn't dare come near the factory again after he spoke with her. Meanwhile, Chelsea and my mother kept calling me, demanding I attend the wedding, but I ignored every message. Then the wedding date was set, and I realized the day I had been waiting for had finally arrived. Harry, my sister's wedding is coming up.
Are you going to go?
Of course. I can't wait. When the wedding day arrived, I was ready. Brian's family hadn't met me before because I had skipped the initial introductions. Chelsea had told them I was too embarrassed to attend because I was a high school dropout. She had even sent me a message instructing me to stick to that story. I'm so sorry I missed the initial meeting. I was just too ashamed to stand in front of such an esteemed family with my lack of education. Brian's family was kind, reassuring me that it wasn't a big deal. Meanwhile, my mother Chelsea and Brian were busy playing the roles of perfect family members, putting on their best "we're so wonderful" act. I watched, smiling politely, but feeling nothing inside. Then during the reception, they did it. They seated me at a table, all alone. One large round table with only me at it. It was their way of reminding me of my place, the factory worker with no education.
We figured you'd be more comfortable on your own, considering how nervous you get around people with real educations.
I could hear the whispers around me, but I didn't care. I calmly ate my meal, minding my own business, when a man approached with a plate and a drink.
Excuse me, may I join you?
I don't mind.
Thank you. My name is Paul, and I'm the CEO at Brian and your sister's company.
Oh, I see. Thank you for everything you've done for them. I greeted him politely.
No need for that, but if I'm not mistaken, do you work at a certain factory?
I was taken aback that he had recognized me. Yes, that's right, I do. Have we met before?
Not directly. I've visited your factory and read about your team's work in an industry magazine. I saw your picture there.
Oh, yes, I remember that. I explained that my team was working on a new project aimed at improving the happiness of pets. The project had been featured in the magazine, and we were all working hard to make it a success.
I'm very interested in that project. I wanted to ask you more about it, but I feel bad bringing up work on such a special day.
He smiled warmly, and I felt comfortable with him. Actually, I'm curious. Are you a cat person by any chance?
Yes, I've loved cats since I was 5 years old, and I've always had one. My current cat is my pride and joy. I assume you have a cat as well?
I nodded, feeling a sense of connection. As he showed me a picture of his cat on his phone, I realized it was the same breed as Susie. Seeing how much he cared for his cat, I decided to tell him the truth about my sister and Brian. Actually, Paul, my sister didn't tell you the full story about her and pets.
Oh, what do you mean?
You see, my sister doesn't actually care about Susie, my cat. She's been pretending. The photos of Susie that she showed you, she took them from my phone.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's true. And what's worse, because her fiancé, Brian, is allergic to cats, they dumped Susie in the mountains.
They abandoned a cat?
Yes, they put her in a carrier and left her in the woods to die. They didn't even care. My mom and dad helped, and neither my sister nor Brian stopped them. They even thanked my parents for getting rid of Susie.
This can't be real. Your sister and Brian never mentioned any of this.
It's real. I've been searching for Susie, but I haven't found her yet. Paul's face turned red with anger.
I gave your sister a chance at this job because I thought she loved animals. I'm shocked to hear that she would do something so heartless.
Paul was fuming. Yeah, Brian was laughing about it. He said, "It's just a cat. Why are you so upset? Like Susie's life meant nothing."
This is unacceptable. A cat is a living being, a family member. How could they do this?
Paul clenched his fists. Just then, my sister and Brian walked by our table.
Paul, what are you doing here? Is everything okay?
I was just having a very enlightening conversation with your sister, Mary.
Oh, well, I hope she wasn't bothering you. You know, she's not very sophisticated.
My sister's nervousness was palpable.
She's a high school dropout, so it's not like she could have an important conversation with someone like you. Actually, you're wrong. Your sister, Mary, is working on a very important project. I find her work impressive. In fact, I'm much more interested in what she has to say than anything you or Brian have told me.
Oh, what?
My sister was visibly shaken. She tried to laugh it off, but was clearly panicking.
Oh, come on. You're exaggerating, right, Mary?
She shot me a look, hoping I would save her from the situation. No, Paul is right. You've never cared about anything I do. You've always looked down on me. Brian stepped in, looking defensive.
Look, we were just joking around. Everyone knows factory workers aren't as successful as college graduates. It's just a fact.
I smiled at his pathetic attempt to downplay the situation. Joking, huh? Like how you joked about dumping Susie in the mountains because of your allergy? I made sure my voice was loud enough for people nearby to hear. The room started to buzz with whispers.
Mary, stop! What are you doing?
My sister's face turned bright red with anger and embarrassment.
You're being ridiculous. That cat was getting in the way of our lives. We did what we had to do.
That's when my mother came rushing over, clearly overhearing everything.
Mary, stop spreading these lies. You're just trying to ruin your sister's big day.
She tried to pull me away, but I stood my ground. Lies? I'm not lying, and you know it. In fact, I have proof. I took out my phone and played the recording I had from the day Susie was abandoned. It captured the entire conversation where my family discussed dumping Susie. Paul's face darkened as he listened to every word.
I can't believe what I'm hearing. I gave your sister responsibility at work because I thought she loved animals. And now I find out she's involved in abandoning one? This is outrageous.
No, Paul, it's not what it sounds like.
She's exaggerating everything.
Paul looked at both of them, disgusted.
I don't think I need to hear any more.
Paul stood up from the table.
This wedding may be a joyous occasion for you two, but for me, it's been nothing short of eye-opening. I'll be re-evaluating both of your positions in the company.
Chelsea tried to stop him.
Please, Paul, don't do this. I need this job.
You should have thought about that before you abandoned a living creature.
With that, Paul walked away, leaving my sister and Brian stunned. Their wedding day was in shambles, and I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. Well, I guess that's my cue to leave. Congratulations on the wedding, by the way. I hope you two are very happy together. I turned and left the reception without looking back. I didn't know what would happen to my sister or Brian after that, but I didn't care. I had already cut ties with my family, and after today, I had no reason to ever speak to them again. Harry and I started a new life together. We moved into a pet-friendly apartment, and miraculously, we found Susie. Someone from a nearby pet cemetery had found her and taken her in, caring for her until we were reunited. Susie was thrilled to see me, jumping in my arms, purring and licking my face. It was the happiest moment of my life. From then on, it was the three of us, Harry, Susie, and me. We were a family. To add to the good news, Paul visited our factory shortly after the wedding and offered to fund our pet project. Thanks to his support, we were able to take the project to new heights. As for Chelsea and Brian, their wedding was cancelled immediately after I left. Their relationship fell apart and they both ended up quitting their jobs after their reputations were ruined. Chelsea retreated to my parents' house, hiding away from the world. I heard my father sent me a text saying he was divorcing my mother, but honestly I couldn't care less about them anymore. They're all paying the price for their selfishness. As for me, I'm finally surrounded by people who truly care about me. Harry, Susie, and my coworkers are my real family now. I'm happy, and I plan to stay that way.